It's so rare in modern society or current culture to have these moments of silence and solitude. It's like technology has stolen every chance we get to reflect, whether that's first thing in the morning, reflecting on the day ahead, or last thing at night, reflecting on the day that's been. Technology's even stolen our reflection space waiting for a coffee in line when we used to think about things or have to talk to somebody. There's so many aspects of our life that has just been filled, I guess, spaces that have been filled by technology and distraction. In those rare moments, when we do get the chance to stop and reflect, I don't know about you, but I have these memories or things that come up that I guess, regret. Past mistakes that come to my mind, moments of weakness or moments of brokenness. Whether that's a young Steve thinking it's a good idea to try to eat 30 pizzas of pizza to impress his friends, or whether that's another or the same young Steve driving somewhere thinking he needs to get everywhere in a rush but ending up with hefty driving tickets. Maybe it's a past memory that's even more regrettable. Maybe it's something that you're really ashamed of. For me, one of the biggest things I'm ashamed of is a younger Steve, how he treated a particular ex-girlfriend. Now, she did become my wife, so things worked out and we worked through that, but a selfish younger Steve and the things he said, the things he did, if I'm honest, sometimes keep me up at night. Sometimes I reflect and I wear that guilt and I wear that shame on the way I've acted. And I think things like, why did you say those things? In those moments of reflection, I think, oh, Steve, why did you say that or do that thing? I wish I could Marty and Doc Brown that thing and eradicate it, go back and get rid of that. Wish those memories didn't exist. I wish I didn't have to carry those things. Wish I didn't have to carry that guilt and that shame. And while reflection is extremely healthy, I get that living in the past, when we reflect on the things we could have done differently, when we cringe at the things we think of past selves, it is a healthy reminder sometimes that we've all made mistakes, that we're all not perfect. It's in these moments that we can come to terms that every single one of us has done broken things. And I guess the main question I want to ask through this video is, what do you do with that though? Where do you take that? Do you hold on to that? Do you live out of that? Do you let some of it define who we are? What do you do with your brokenness? You can distract yourself as much as you want, but the brokenness still stays there. I mean, we are distraction kings and queens. The latest app, the latest phone, the latest Netflix series. We can keep this baby going so we never even have to consider for a moment some of the deeper and darker things about ourselves. We can keep drinking. We can numb it with something we're smoking. We can keep the party rocking, hopefully long enough that we never come down, which we do, but in the hope that we never have to consider this brokenness. Or we could try religion or religious acts. More specifically. And this is the part you're like, boom, here he goes. He's going to tell me that I need to do good stuff in order to counter level the bad stuff. And I'm sorry to disappoint. Doing good stuff is great, but doing good stuff doesn't magically fix or address the brokenness. And so religious acts, religion in some contexts can be just as damaging or just as alluring, I guess, but still just a distraction. You can try Eastern spirituality, I guess. You can vibrate to a whole new level. Try to reach nirvana, not so much the 90s rock band, but to not exist. As they say in The Matrix, there is no spoon. You can vibrate to a place where there is no brokenness. Or try karma, kind of a cosmic blame shift where it's not you that has the brokenness, it must be something else you did or someone else did. You can sort of shift the blame. And I'm painting with broad strokes here, I get that. But you have to admit, that's just escapism. That's just more distraction. Still, none of those things get to address the brokenness head on. None of those things actually go into the brokenness and deal with it. So the question then becomes, what does? The question is video, what does address the brokenness? Let me park that thought for a moment, because I want to talk about something else for a sec. I want to talk about probably one of the world's best known symbols, a cross. Now, crucifixion was something the Roman Empire cooked up, and it was a way originally, in its original form, was a way of torturing and killing people via suffocation as they hanged on the cross. The word excruciating actually comes from the word crucifixion, giving you an idea that the whole experience was not just bad to die, but also painful in doing so. And it was more than just a way to die in ancient Rome. It was a statement. They would hang these crucifixions on intersections in roads, so people walking as they approached the city would know what the Roman Empire stood for. It was a symbol in those people's minds of death. It was a symbol of fear, control. It was a way for the empire to say exactly what it means to stand against them, exactly what it means to step out of line. So how on earth did a symbol that meant all of that now become this kind of popular symbol in modern age to wear around your neck, to put and hang from your car? The empty cross now meaning new life, hope, faith, spirituality. How on earth does that drastic, rebranding happen? How do you change the identity of something that means fear and control into hope and life? How did the cross so drastically change its meaning? Well, Jesus died on it. The letter to the early Christians in the book of Hebrews says this, explains it this way. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. So you have humanity and brokenness and a question of what you do with that. And then you have this symbol, the cross. I want to suggest that those two things aren't just two random stories or two random examples, but they are completely intertwined. You see, to take on our brokenness head on, to not just sugarcoat it, to not escape it, to not ignore it, to not make ourselves feel better and distract ourselves from it, it needed a solution. At first glimpse, the disciples, and at first glimpse even hearing a story, how can someone dying on something fix it? But then upon reflection, it actually makes perfect sense. It's the only way to come into the brokenness. It was the only way to pay the bill that was due. It is the only way to kill the brokenness itself. It was the only way to take that shame and guilt on becoming that shame and guilt on the cross and killing it once and for all. Making and paving a way to live a new life, to live in a new way, not carrying brokenness, but carrying hope. Now, side note, I'm not suggesting that by dying on the cross, he stopped worldly consequences. If you have sped or committed a crime recently, that's still going to catch up. I could spend a whole heap of time in this video talking about the mechanics of it. We could talk about how justice needed to be served. We could talk about how the ransom needed to be paid, that victory needed to be won, which is all true, but it's not the purpose of the message today. Rather, in this season, I trust and I hope that this idea of brokenness being destroyed, the shame and guilt being taken, I hope that that speaks to something deep within your bones. I mean, it's already within our common psyche. It comes through in all our art. Just look at any pop sort of culture movie. Harry Potter, what was the end solution? The boy that had to die. Where do you think that is taken from? Or you got the classic Matrix. Neo has to die to smash the Matrix. Or recently, the absolute cultural phenomenon known as Avengers. Tony Stark, what was the ultimate price that Tony Stark or Natasha Romanoff had to pay? That's right, they had to die. That was the ultimate play to fix everything. There's something within us, something within our art, something within our universal structure, within our bones that says to ultimately tackle this head on, for things to be made right, someone has to die, and he did. Not just die though, or not just stay dead, but for at least what I believe and what people witnessed 2,000 years ago and what people have experienced since then is that he came back to life. And this is important because he wasn't just all talk. around defeating the brokenness. He actually proved he had the power to do so. He actually proved his divinity. That means he actually had the power to turn our guilt, our shame, our death into hope, freedom, and life. This message, this video, isn't a sales pitch. I'm not trying to convince you of something. I'm not trying to start a debate. Rather, I just want to give you an invitation this Easter to consider Jesus. As you maybe take a moment in this wacky season we're in to reflect, to stop, to think about past regrets, to think about brokenness, to think about mistakes, and reflect on what you're doing to solve that. Reflect on how you're coping with that. Is the drinking working? Is the addiction doing its job? Is a distraction truly distracting you from the truth? Is any of it working? And if you honestly reflect and you can answer, no, it's fun for moments, it's even good for others, but it's not truly addressing this brokenness within me, then I just ask to do the research. If you feel comfortable, to say a prayer, which is basically you saying to Jesus, can you do something with this guilt and this shame? Can you do something new this Easter in me? I look forward to having more conversations. I look forward to having more conversations around this video with you, and hopefully we can talk further. Consider Jesus this Easter.